every single moment that we have on this earth is a moment to be in love. And if we truly experience the present moment as an extension of our love, then the universe is only going to pack that back into you.
Hello, beautiful beings, and welcome back to another episode of Deja Blu. This has really become one of my most favorite offerings that I have, because it's an opportunity to really be able to sit down with some of my most favorite people that exist in my life, and that have been teachers and allies and collaborators and individuals that have been weaving their path and leaning into the path of excellence so that they can really activate their service to the world. And today's guest is definitely no exception. What an honor to welcome my dear, dear, dear soul brother to the hands of God. If you hadn't already noticed, we are sitting in the hands of God. We're recognizing it's all in God's hands from this point forward. This human has come into my life and activated so many things within me. He has just been a walking permission slip for the essence of lightness and play, while simultaneously also diving to the depth of deep esoteric studies, spiritual studies, and being a forever student and humble teacher in this life for everybody that you get to come into contact with. Also, he was the individual, we're going to talk about this later, but he is the individual that introduced me to tribal markers. He was the very first person that placed a tribal marker in my hand, which started a whole legacy of things, which we'll circle back in a moment. So you can imagine the impact that this human has had in my life. With that being said, also, he is an international yogi traveling around the world, teaching individuals about the art of yoga and the practice of yoga, weaving yoga as an intricacy of life, as a livelihood, as opposed to something that we do. It's just something that we be in our everyday waking presence. Also, he is a content creator and storyteller, and also building some really, really special things to create a bigger wave of impact of healing on the planet, which we'll talk about later as well. However, most importantly, he is a soul brother of mine, and such a gift to be able to have you on Deja Blu podcast today. So,
what a blessing.
To all of you, we have Andrew Steely.
Let's go. Oh, up top. Wow. What an introduction. Oh my goodness. I feel like I'm completely silenced and humble. Just great gratitude for our friendship and for the continuous loving licks of the schnoobie down here, just making sure that my fingers are nice and clean.
She's really just an extension of me. So when my heart goes like towards someone, she's like, on it, mom.
Exactly. Straight up. I feel it from day one. I feel like this has been such a beautiful connection, such an awesome opportunity to have just both of us grow into who we're meant to be, and to have the opportunity now to drop into LA for a few days and to be sitting here in the hands of God's with you is just the blessing.
You came over last night, and we had like a little bit of a drop in, and you don't live in LA, you live in Costa Rica predominantly. So having you in Los Angeles is like a really rare gem, and it kind of like, you know, like a warm, gentle breeze that sometimes smells like flowers and you just weren't expecting. It's like, oh, hey, that's what your energy is, the presence of my life. It was just like, it wafts in, and I'm like, oh, it's so warm and it smells really good, and I didn't know you were coming. This is amazing. And then I was like, see, I know you're a busy man and you already have like many things stacked up for the very short period of time you're in LA, but I don't suppose I could get you into the hands of God for just a moment and pick your brains on the podcast. And
when the hands of God are open, I will happily jump in.
So thank you so much for being here.
Definitely.
Well, let's get right into it. And first and foremost, I think giving a little bit of context of how we met might be a really beautiful place to start.
Yeah.
Like I said, and I just gave it like a little bit of a snippet teaser of in the introduction of how you have activated a huge, tribal markers didn't just activate an artistry within me, which is already huge in itself, but it also activated a whole relationship of 3 years that brought the whole community to me, which completely changed the trajectory of my life and has now kept the mother tree alive and the whole thing that has sprouted from you making that connection with me. So I'd love to dive deeper into that piece of how we met.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like ever since I was young, my first real job, I was working for this company, Mind Body, and the founder called me a connection catalyst. And ever since then, I've really felt that that has been like the essence of my being is just bringing the right beings together so that they can really create magic. And it has been just a continuation of me just being me and just, being in the right place. And I say, time and time, worlds align. And that is what brings us to this divine, this moment right here, this present moment. And it was such a blessing to have the opportunity to meet you on a boat. On a boat in Catalina, going to Catalina for one of the Xanadu cruises back in the day. My good friends Heidi and Ryan had this wonderful epic dance and like hang out and like just like really cool vibey, where conscious community would have the opportunity to get together. And I was teaching yoga at these Xanadu cruises, and there just happened to be this wonderful artist there who was making this beautiful lion with a hummingbird coming to kiss the lion at the third eye. And I was like, wow, like this artist is incredible. Like she's totally in tune with what she's doing and who she is. And, the power of the lion and the absolute beauty of the nectar sipping hummingbird just coming together to kiss into enlightenment. And I was like, I got to say hi to her, And so I said hi and, we started chatting. And at the time you were really hungry.
I love how that wove into the conversation. At some point I'm like, yeah, I'm really hungry.
Yeah. And I remember I was like, I actually have some food. Like I at the time I was like, I'm super plant-based, and like oftentimes when I go to events, I realize that most likely they don't have exactly what is going to be nourishing to me. So I bring my own, I'm just like, I got my own, no worries. And so I happened to have a really wonderful dish of like quinoa with vegetables on top and all kinds of. Was it good?
Oh, I still remember it to this day.
Yeah, and so we sat down and we didn't break bread, but we popped some quinoa, and it's been popping ever since.
From my perspective, I hadn't even at all put my foot in the conscious community yet. It was really just, I was kind of an outsider, and someone had just mentioned, hey, you want to bring some of your paintings to this thing? And I was like, yeah, and I was still really nervous. I didn't really know anyone, super quiet. And I remember you coming over and just having such an open heart and such a deep presence about you. And then somehow the conversation ended up on food, which is pretty classic, and ended up showing that I was hungry and that they didn't actually have like much food on board or something. And I remember the pattern interrupt that you created through your generosity of giving me your lunch. Like it was in a Tupperware, it was perfectly made, it was super high nutritious, it was vegan. And you were like, I remember I had like a bite and I was being like really coy about it. I was like, just have a bite, it's okay. And you were like, no, have the whole thing. I was like, who is this human? He just gave me his lunch and he spent the time connecting with me and having a conversation about my art. And your heart was so open that from my closed off, sheltered, shielded perspective on life and just dipping into this world, you created a invitation of what the power of having an open heart and a curious mind does. And I remember it being one of those pivotal moments, realizing that when it's unlocked within ourselves, it's not necessarily about what we do.
Yeah.
It's just about who we be. That is the permission slip with an open heart to grant that it's safe for others to start weaving in similar ways. And so you created this. This was the start of our friendship. Like that was the first domino that got pushed of all the dominoes that have come after this, just with that frequency. And ever since then, and then you introduced me to Tribal Markers. Do you want to share a little bit about what Tribal Markers is?
Yeah. So, at this event, not only was I teaching yoga, but I love the opportunity to adorn. And I feel like, adoration is also deeply woven into the lineage of yoga as a means to give praise to another being. And if we really see one another as reflections, then it's that opportunity to truly see someone and to give them love by bringing their beauty out and allowing their splendor to shine even more. And there were these wonderful tools that are called tribal body markers that if you have not seen, you need to get some in your hands, because they really do bring out a whole new variance of how you can share your art with the world. And, it's oftentimes that we're writing on paper, but we forget that the human body is a work of art in its own. And to be able to just bring out those little splendors and lusters and those little features that, we see as beautiful is a great way to adorn another soul. And so I had these tribal body markers with me. I brought them with me everywhere I went, especially to, festivals and awesome events like Xanadu. And I was like, I got to bring this artist into this space of being able to realize the magic that is marking another with your mark. And, with tribal body markers, we first connect, we place our feet on one another. And then through that connection, we see eye to eye, and we have a little moment of silence where we're able to feel each other. And then from that space, we adorn. And I had the opportunity of not just adorning you with the tribal markers, but also lending you a few. And then from there, I feel like it was just like planting a seed in the most fertile ground ever. And
whoa,
the rest is history.
A whole thing. Like the amount of impact that moment of knowing that these markers existed changed my life. Really, really in a significant way. And I remember you saying, paint me. And your level of trust of like, really? Are you sure? Like, I might mess it up. I don't know what I'm doing. And you were like, if you looked at my painting, you were like, I think you know what you're doing. And I remember.
I was like, this is going to be epic.
Thanks for believing in me. And they gave me like a mandala on your chest and down your shoulder. And Amir actually about a week ago sent me the picture that I have on my Instagram of that photo.
Wow.
And he was like, I can't believe this is your first time. And sent that picture. And it was you and me smiling in front of the painting. Like, and it's just like, oh, little babas.
Yeah.
Little did we know the amount of beauty that was going to be burst from that one moment of interaction.
Yeah. And it's just the intention that is behind those markers, and how incredible of a being Baba, Amir Magal. Oh my goodness. Such a magical human being. Sending love to him. But, I feel like when a medium or a tool is made with such intention, it's only going to create more magic.
Yes.
And that's really the basis of what he has created with that wonderful art of tribal body marking. And since then, I've been all around the world sending, markers, sharing markers, and it was a catalyst for me as well in learning to really appreciate another and see eye to eye. And I would say also it helped me to blossom into my own confidence of really being able to hold someone's hand, because oftentimes, I hate to say it, but being Black, like a lot of times, like people are like they just have like a subconscious fear, like even just like oh, there's a Black guy, and so it's like just being able to like move past that and to see another being as like no judgment, like here I am just to adorn you and to share this love with you. And that has really helped me to grow with more confidence in being able to approach people with a deeper sense of love.
Thank you for introducing that, because I think it's easy to, specifically as being a white woman, like not having this as is something that I process in my field. And yet this is something that is so alive still today, and is so strong still today. And it's so important that we talk into these topics to bring awareness and consciousness into these topics, so that we can really ask ourselves, what part do I play within that, and how can I soften myself into human connection with all walks of life, of all aspects of the H-U-E, human being, full spectrum.
Wow.
Thank you, just in this moment, for everything that you brought into my life, and you really giving context to the conscious connector that you are, and how many lives you've amplified because of your courage to stay in your heart and to continue to lean into unity and love and connection for all beings. It is such a gift. And on that note, there's just a story. I don't know if I've shared this with you. I think I may have. I've definitely shared it with many other people when you're not present, which made us like love Andrew Shealy even more. Speaking of Amir Magal, it was his birthday party. I think I told you this, right? His birthday party. We rented an Airbnb and there was a window behind the sink. You remember this?
Yes.
There was a window behind the kitchen sink in this Airbnb, and Amir's the sort of person that's like really good behind the camera, but like being in front of it or being the center of attention is not really his like favorite thing.
Totally.
So at his own birthday party, he went missing, of course. And I'm like looking around for him, and he's actually outside looking at his own birthday party through the window, but with this, it's almost like a police interrogation mirror where you can see in, but you can't see out.
Yeah.
So from the inside of the house, it just looks like a mirror. But from the outside, you can see in. So he's standing outside his own birthday party, watching from the outside in, and no one knows he's there. And it's right in front of the sink. And so I went and joined him, and I was like, what are you doing? He's like, come watch this. It's fascinating. It's super fascinating. And he's watching his own birthday party, but because it's a mirror, everyone has a different relationship with mirrors. It's ultimately, it's just an opportunity to see their own reflection. And we all have a unique relationship with our reflection. Sometimes we're like super drawn to our reflection. Sometimes our reflection repulses us. We don't want to look at it, or we just have a completely neutral experience. And also because it was in front of the sink, it was so fascinating because it was an acknowledgement of who's a tribe, like a team player, and who's in it for themselves.
Aww.
Based off of how we dealt with the dishes in the sink. So everyone had dishes, people would come over, they'd look at themselves in the mirror, and they would not see we're standing right behind it, looking at them dead in the eye, and they're like, checking themselves out, doing the thing. And then some people would put their dish in the sink and just add to the dishes and walk away to leave it for somebody else. Yeah. Other people would go over to the sink, they would wash up their own individual dish, put it away, check themselves out, go back. Other people would go, one specific sister went over and she cleaned all the dishes in the sink. She washed everything up, and then left. And we're like, okay, that's a team player right there. Then you come over to the sink, unbeknowing that anybody is behind the window. And you're like, like flowing like this, and you washing everything up and you're giggling to yourself, and I'm like, Andrew Shealy is really that majestic all the time. Like there's no one, you don't know anyone's watching you. It's a mundane in-between moment, but it's the energy that you embody always that creates this magical life that you live, which seems to be an ongoing a compilation of mystical, beautiful, heartfelt connections of travel and beauty and exotic fruit and connection. And that moment showed me the difference between externally being a certain way and packing yourself with so much internal riches that it's just who you are.
Well, thank you. Thank you for seeing me. And I feel that it comes from really having a deep awareness of what you put in is what you give out. And I feel truly that, every single moment that we have on this earth is a moment to be in love. And if we truly experience the present moment as an extension of our love, then the universe is only going to pack that back into you. It's a constant exchange. It's a constant relationship with the beauty of presence. And there's beauty in every moment. And it's just a matter of seeing that and feeling that. And yeah. And when the veil is released of all the illusion and the confusion and the delusion, we have this pure love. And this pure love is able to be experienced in every connection, whether it's seeing yourself in the mirror, whether it's doing the dishes, where it's having your fingers licked by Schnooby, whether it's being on Deja Blu. Like, it's love. Yeah. It's all here.
It's a continuing theme, and it is a gift to be in the presence of somebody that is so embodied in that. And speaking of embodiment, I would love to segue into the theme of your teachings and the embodiment of what it is that you share with the world and your platforms, which is the art of yoga. And it is something that, the way that you move your body and the strength that you have in your body pushes my parameters of what I know is possible having a physical body. And so I would love to hear, I hope this isn't too much of a broad brushstroke, how you got into yoga and your relationship with it. And I guess we can continue to unpack it because it's such a big topic. But maybe just learning to how you got into it first and foremost, because you were an athlete, right? A soccer player.
Yeah. I played competitive soccer at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I love soccer. I grew up from the time that I was 3 years old playing soccer. I'm from Barbados originally. So like literally football is ingrained into you from an early age, either that or cricket. And I wasn't much of a cricket player, but I really enjoyed soccer. And I, at the time, was playing competitively. And then also I was studying microbiology and I was in a fraternity and I was overwhelmed, with studying, with school, with, social life, with soccer, double days, practicing in the morning and in the evening, and I was just exhausted. And I kept having this reoccurring ankle injury in my right ankle. And I realized that, like it kept coming on. Like it wasn't like, every single day I would have the same injury. And so I was like, this is something that I really got to work on. And I had a really awesome girlfriend at the time who brought me to my first ever Bikram yoga class. And this girl, Kelsey, was like, look, like, you have to come with me to Bikram yoga. She was super awesome, played tennis, and like she like knew what was up, And I was like, okay, like yoga's for girls. Like I don't really need to go to yoga. Like we stretch before practice. Like I'm not doing that, She was like, look, like if you don't like it, you never have to come back, but at least try it once. I was like, that's a really good argument. If I don't like it, I don't have to come back. Perfect. Let me just go one time. So just tell her that I don't like it. It's weird, whatever judgment I can push on it, And at the time I was just a 19-year-old, athlete, super A-type personality, like get my work done, push myself to the limit. And I am an Aquarius. So I also have like this very like deep, like when it does get spiritual, I'm like, I can tap in deep. Like I can really like align to those spaces. But for me, it was just nature. Like I loved going on hikes and that kind of stuff. And so long story short, I go to this Bikram yoga class, and at the time I had no idea what it was. I was just like, I'm going to a yoga class. Like I'm going to, bring my soccer shorts and, just figure out what goes on. I ended up showing up 2 minutes late. I rode my bike there. I like parked my bike, go in. They're like, get up to class, like go. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like I get up there, and as soon as I open the door, this rush of heat just, and I'm like, it's hot in here. And it was 105 degrees, 90% humidity. Everyone's like already starting doing all this breath work stuff. And I'm like looking around, and the instructor's like, oh, we have a spot for you over there. Get over there. I'm like, okay. I like get into the corner. It's right under the heater. And I'm like sitting there for 90 minutes, sweating my everything off. and it's like the most confronting situation ever, because there's a mirror right in front of you. And so you're just there, sitting there, looking at yourself, having to deal with all of the pain that you feel, all of the insecurities that you may have. And you're just looking at yourself there in the mirror while practicing these positions that are strenuous and that are hard and that are difficult and that bring up these, senses of uncomfortability in your body, and also these kind of like insecurities in your mind when you're looking around. Like I'm 19 years old. I'm a collegiate athlete. I'm supposed to be on my game, and I'm like sweating, not being able to touch my toes, not even being able to touch my shins because I was so literally inflexible from years of soccer and injury. And I'm looking at people double my age doing it like it's nothing. And I'm like, I should be able to do this. Like, this is my vessel. Like, I'm supposed to be at the top of my game. And here I am, like, literally not able to touch my knees. And so after that class, I was completely humbled. And the teacher was like, that was really good. You did great. Was that your first time? And I was like, yeah, that was my first time. And he's like, yeah, you should come back again. You should sign up for the 30-day challenge. And I was like, oh my goodness, 30 days of this. Oh. But at the same time, the other like ego in my mind is like, you got this. Come on, like man up, And I was like, yeah, 30 days. I'll be back tomorrow. And so I did Bikram yoga for 30 days.
Wow.
Straight. after that 30 days, I did another 60-day challenge. So I had 90 days under my belt. And after that 90 days, I was able to touch my toes for the first time.
Oh.
And I was completely in a state of realizing that my grades got better, my relationships got better, my awareness of myself got better, how I was able to just settle into my body and give appreciation for my breath. It was just every aspect of my life was increased with more awareness. And from that awareness came a deeper sense of compassion for myself. And I was like hooked on yoga. And so immediately after that, I went back to my desk job, which I was working a part-time job over at a company called Body. And they do all the software for all the yoga studios. And they were like super cool at the time. And
you were working a desk job?
Yep, I was working a desk job. Yeah. As well as going to school, as well as playing soccer. And I was just like, same thing, overwhelmed. And I was like, like I really can see myself diving deeper into this yoga thing because it's actually helped me so much. And so I ended up quitting the fraternity, and I ended up like really getting into a deeper state of like really focusing on my grades. And then through that, I was like, I don't think that I'm going to become a pro soccer player. So I'm just going to quit soccer as well. And I really stuck with yoga, and my grades got better. And my awareness of yoga became more vast. And as I was working at Body, they were like, oh, like you're getting so many sales, like you're doing really good. And I actually had a manager at Body who was a Bikram yoga teacher. And so I would go to her classes at 6 a.m. in the morning, and she would teach me like different cold calling tactics and like how to get more sales and like how to speak the yoga language. And then she would also teach me more about like the management behind the scenes, and like my awareness of yoga and business became better at the same time. And so they offered me a full-time position for $80K out of the door, like, literally. And I'm in my third year of college, and like people are like begging for a job. This is in 2011. So like right before was that 2000? Yeah, 2011. Exactly. Right before like all of the crazy economic crash and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, I've always had this like intuition of like, when something is offered to you, even though it may not seem like the road that everyone else is taking, like really do your best to like be in alignment with it, like really feel through it. And so I felt into it, and I was like, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm not planning on becoming a doctor with microbiology. Like, I had already gotten to the point where I realized that like, I could either go into the medical field or into like, genetically, mutating genes and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, that's not really where my heart is. And I want to learn more about myself. And through the practice of yoga, I was opened up into that space of learning more about myself. I did my yoga teacher training in San Luis Obispo at the yoga center, which was absolutely incredible. I met my first yoga teacher, Rocky Heron, who's incredible. He's like 6'7", incredible, big, beautiful Black man from Jamaica. He's half Jamaican and half American. And his whole awareness of yoga was so deep, but it was also very confronting for me because he was gay. And I, being from Barbados, had never really like had any deep connections with gay men. And I had never like really been in a vulnerable space with a gay man. And I was just like, at the time, like, like this is so interesting that like my teacher is a gay man, and he's like so like flamboyant and elegant and just like beautiful, but at the same time, very respectful and honorable, and not like trying to hit on me or anything, like just like giving me the experience for what it is. And it was so beautiful to like even have like hands-on adjustments from, a really wonderful being who was just giving that space of experience to me without any expectation or anything. And yoga is a very intimate thing, especially when you're learning it at that capacity. And it just opened me up to a whole new way of being and a whole new way of seeing. And from my yoga teacher training, I started, teaching yoga at Body. Actually, I was teaching like for part-time at the lunch, like we would have a lunch break. And at Body, they had these wellness bucks. And so people who were, at their desk job could also take yoga at lunch. And so I was one of the first yoga teachers, me and one of the other students who did the yoga teacher training, Kristen, who I absolutely remember. She was such a sweetheart. And we would teach yoga to people who were at their desks as like part of the corporate yoga.
Brilliant.
And from that, I started like growing into my own awareness of teaching yoga, and a friend of mine reached out and was like, "Hey, would you like to teach some Acro-Yoga?" Because I had just started like practicing Acro-Yoga at this Xanadu conference, and it was like in Catalina Island, and my friend Heidi reached out to me, and she was like, "Hey, like you should really come out and teach some Acro-Yoga," and I did. And that was my first awareness that like yoga could be something that could actually be my livelihood. Because I was paid like $200 an hour to teach what I love. And I was like, wow, like I'm getting paid to do what I love. Like this is awesome. Instead of like sitting at the desk, cold calling businesses and trying to get them to sign up for the software, maybe I could actually teach yoga as a full-time thing. And that seed was planted.
And now you're traveling around the world and touching hundreds of thousands, maybe not physically touching, but like impacting hundreds of thousands of lives through the teachings of this practice and how it can be incorporated into our everyday lives. No matter if we work in retail or we work behind a desk or we're in the full-time spiritual scene as a living, really it applies to everybody. And it's just recognizing how to optimize the physical body to be able to release stored energy, to create a more balanced, harmonious sense of mind.
It really is clearing your vessel. And when you have a clear vessel, then source can flow through. And my only goal is to help bring forth a deeper awareness of this and to become the most clear vessel that I can be for source to flow through. And so that's all I do. That's my practice every single morning. That's my practice every single evening. That's my practice anytime that I'm in communion with another being, is to really just allow source to flow through. And as we become more clear, that is when the beauty of life continues to appear.
Wow. It really is just a constant reminder that we have everything already right now. It's just the context of how to work with what already is.
Truth.
And it reminds me of a quote from Sadhguru that I've mentioned before, where he said, I'm not here to teach you how to be superhuman. I'm here to teach you and remind you that to be human is super. And it's just such like a warm fuzzy quote for me, because it really doesn't separate through certain ethnicities or certain social backgrounds or how much money we make, but it's recognizing if you have a physical body and your heart is pumping, then you're pretty spectacular.
Yeah. They say that just to be born into a human body is a blessing. Because you already have this deep sense of awareness of who you are. And you are infinite, truly, in your essence. And you have the opportunity to create. And you have the opportunity to be a steward. Humane being, right? And to truly realize that our role as stewards onto this earth is to uplift and to bring forth more connection and to bring forth more vibrance and all the beauty that we see around us. And these hands are for healing. These hands are for service. These hands are to do not just our work, but Source's work, to allow Source, God, the generator, the organizer, the destroyer, to flow through us. And
I remember receiving some guidance once when I was asking about my life's work or my purpose. And the response I got was, if all you had was your loving touch, that would be enough. I was like, just to love and to touch and to create spaces for people to be able to soften and to relax and to heal. And then that moves into also what you did for me last night, which is such an amazing offering, which is Acro-Yoga. And I would love for you to share a little bit more about what Acro-Yoga is for anybody that's not tuned into Acro-Yoga, and how it's really an extension of, the tools that you have in your tool belt, whether it's tribal markers, which is the art of human connection, and adornment, Acro-Yoga, which is the art of human connection, and specifically being somebody that's hard of hearing. And in the Acro-Yoga poses, and there's specific positions where I can't hear what you're saying. So it invites into a deeper level of telepathy and movement through touch and energetics, as opposed to necessarily even relying on our words. So I would love for you to share about what Acro-Yoga is and how you believe that it supports with the art of human connection.
Yeah, Acro-Yoga is also one of those arts that, just like tribal markers, just completely amplified my whole state of being, because interacting with another human being on a level that is not just physical, but is also energetic, and being able to allow someone to soften into the trust of support is one of the most healing ways to communicate. And I feel that we oftentimes forget that 90% of communication is actually nonverbal. And so just the space that we are here connecting with one another through our eyes, through the connection of just our fields, our auric energy being here in this space is connection, is communication. And so Acro-Yoga for me was first introduced actually at this park in San Luis Obispo, where I saw some people, this guy, especially Trevor, who used to do Acro-Yoga in the park all the time. And I was like, at my yoga teacher training, I saw these people playing and I was like, they're doing yoga on top of each other. Like they're like, what? Like they're making shapes and it's cool and they're supporting each other and it looks like fun. They're giggling, they're having a great time. And like, you know, coming from yoga as a way to like get in tune with your own being, right? And then seeing someone else like, it's like a dance. It's like a way that you can actually interact with another human being and create this space of not just support and healing, but also of fun. It looked fun. And I was like, I got to try that. So I went over and I was like, this is towards the end of my yoga teacher training. And I just jumped in and I was like, you know, on my lunch break. And next thing I know, I'm like late to yoga teacher training because I'm like sitting there having so much fun playing, you know? And so Acro-Yoga is a really incredible way for people to be able to really create community because it's not just one anymore. It's now 2 or 3. And then you have this opportunity of supporting each other. And then like one person can be there as a spotter, like making sure that everything's good to go. And it really becomes like this interconnected web of how we can actually create together. And I am very, very much in the space of like wanting to create together. I feel that's really what we need to do right now more than ever to create the next ascension of humankind, which I feel is us all coming together to help uplift this world, to be stewards onto the animals, to be stewards onto Mother Nature so that we can really find how we can come together harmoniously to draw forth more beauty, more love, more vibrance, more sustainability, more efficiency. Because right now, we're going through a very unique time. I mean, it's the 6th largest extinction of all mankind. And not just humans, but also of plants, of species of animals that have been here for millennia, literally millions of years before us. And so we have to look at how we as humans can actually create more harmony with each other so that we can find ways to bring forth more solutions to the biggest problems that we're facing right now. And I feel that one of the most important things that we can do is learn how to communicate with each other in a harmonious and loving and supportive way that allows our ideas to flow. And Acro-Yoga is one of the most incredible ways to do that.
Wow. It is. It's like the microcosm of the macrocosm of real connection, telepathy through connection, or connection through telepathy, either way. And realizing how we can really hold each other. It's very symbolic. It's like you said at the beginning, before we did the Acro-Yoga yesterday, you said, it's like you're floating on a cloud. Trust me. And it's just like, really recognizing the layers of not trusting or not softening deeper, which then actually impacts the way that I interact with anybody. But it's really just shown in the Acro-Yoga experience, in the Acro-Yoga sequence. And I love what you said also about the interconnected nature of all sentient life, of all beings on the planet. And so I would love to ask you a little bit about your relationship with veganism. You mentioned that you're vegan. I'm curious if you've been vegan your whole life and what was your decision around going vegan?
Yeah. I have not been vegan my whole life. I actually have been fully plant-based vegan now for the last 11 years. And I'm 31 years old, so since I was 20 years old. And the process of it was actually first through science. I was studying microbiology at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I had a really great friend of mine who was doing her actual graduate study on nutrition. And one of her projects was to put different soccer players on different diets. So she had 6 different soccer players who she put on different diets. And then essentially one was on like a paleo diet, one was on like the Atkins diet, one was on the USDA pyramid diet, another guy on the vegetarian diet, another guy pescatarian diet, and then I was on a fully plant-based diet. And for 90 days, we had all of our vitals, our VO2 max, our body mass index, like we had blood drawn to see like all of the minerals and, everything. And after 90 days, not only did I feel better, but actually like through the data that they collected, I had like the highest body to mass, muscle to fat ratio. And like I was like actually like more efficient in the way that I was using my energy. And I was like, this makes sense. Like, like I was pescatarian before, growing up and being from Barbados. Like we didn't really eat a lot of beef or pork. I actually only had pork once for a friend's 18th birthday. He wanted me to try these ribs, and I tried the ribs, and then like literally like was evacuating for like the next 2 days.
That's a very graceful word to use.
Yeah.
It was evacuating.
It was exit out of stage up and down.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was like, never going to do that again. And I had been someone who like loved chicken and loved fish. My grandpa would always, catch flying fish and make these fried flying fish, like fritters and all kinds of great things and fish cakes. And being from Barbados, that's what I grew up on, so that's what I knew, that and vegetables. And, so transitioning to a plant-based diet was not that hard. And I was always someone who like really could feel the awareness of my body, and even during the practice of yoga as well. Cause like first it was yoga, and then it was like doing this study. And then it was like, oh, like from yoga, I cut out milk, I cut out dairy, because in my practice, I was like, I'm getting stuffy. Like what is coming out? And then I realized that the more that I was drinking milk and like eating cheese pizza and all this kind of stuff, like the more mucus I had. And thus I cut out the milk first. That was the first thing that went out. And then it was like, wow, like my body feels better. I'm able to recover faster. I didn't have like that lactic burn after working out. And then from there, I was like, after now being plant-based for 90 days, I don't think I'm going to go back to eating chicken or fish, because I feel even more vibrant. Like I just was able to like sleep better. Sleep was so much more easy. I was able to just like go to sleep like that. And I felt like a lot of times when I was eating chicken or fish, I had like almost like residue, like almost like a sleepiness about like just like having to wake up early. Like I just felt like I just didn't feel like 100% all the time. And so when I cut out fish and chicken, it was just like everything became lighter. It was almost like, in the morning, like when you wipe off your sunglasses or something, and then you're just like, oh, or like, like you see your windshield in your car and like you put the little spritz and it's like, wow, whole new clear view. Like that's how it felt. And so essentially I have just been plant-based ever since, and I've been refining even more to the sense that like right now I only eat about 1 or 2 meals a day, if that. And it really comes down to becoming more clear in your being. And I feel that the more clear that you become, the less outside energy that you need to be able to fuel your inside. And so I feel like it's all energy, And so the more that we become attuned to our energy, the more that we can actually amplify ourselves and thus amplify the world around us. And especially the environment that we're in is also in communion with our energy. So if you're in a very like harsh environment, then you're probably going to need more outside energy to be able to fuel your inside energy. And so if I live in Costa Rica and literally I wake up, I drink tea, I do my meditation, and I don't eat until like 1 o'clock. And then my first meal is usually like a big salad with like some fruit, maybe a Glow vegan shake, and like, bam, I'm chilling until like 6 p.m. Then I'll eat like a nice little dinner with like, some legumes, some rice. I love like lentils. I love lentils. I make sweet potatoes. I love making pancakes.
You definitely need to try Andre's pancakes.
Definitely.
He's known for them. They're famous.
Yeah. I love making pancakes. Vegan, gluten-free pancakes are my jam. But yeah, I feel like we really got to think of all matter, everything that we see around us as energy. And within that energy, we have the opportunity to unlock that energy and to store it within our own bodies to then bring it into manifestation of that which is our reality. And so if we really see it that way, then I would much rather eat something that is living and vibrant than something that's already dead.
100%. So you feel, you mentioned about how, okay, this is actually really beautiful. And I haven't heard it worded like this before, where based on the density of your external environment, for example, being in Costa Rica and living in the jungles and being in that energy, which is really just very light, and then coming into, the Midwest with your family, for example, for Christmas holidays. And all of a sudden now, I did a session with a client 2 days ago who talked about this, that they've been living in Thailand, and it was just like so easy to be in their frequency, to be in their essence, and they've got their community and fire spinning and community meals and the whole thing. And then they're now in the Midwest with their family for the holidays, and they said that they find themselves eating so much more, and they're like feeling very disconnected with their regular pulse. So do you have any advice then for a lifestyle that, because I know that you've lived all varieties of it, and now for your default being more in that lightness, but if somebody's listening to this and they find themselves, for example, in the example of they're in the Midwest and they're with their family and it's really dense and they're really working on trying to find that pulse of like what is true to them amidst the collective narrative that is of a different frequency. What advice would you give for individuals that find themselves in this position?
I would say number one is to have a regular daily practice. And that is something that I hold near and dear to my heart, because when I first started practicing yoga, it was every single day. Like literally, I haven't stopped practicing yoga since I was 19, when I first stepped foot into that Bikram yoga class. Every single day I practice, because it's my livelihood. It's what brings me back to an awareness of myself. And that daily practice could look like yoga. It could look like a meditation. It could look like chanting. It could look like going to your favorite CrossFit teacher, or, swimming. Whatever that daily regimen is, may that be your spiritual practice to really attune your awareness to yourself. And that's really what spiritual practice is. A lot of people ask me like, how do I be spiritual? I'm like, you are a spirit. You are, your essence is spirit. That is you. You are just within this physical form. Yes, a human being, but the whole source of nature that works together in this beautiful cosmic soup that is this universe is spirit. And thus you have a soul, and your spirit and your soul are intertwined in this human being that is you. And so being able to really attune to that is tapping into that awareness of your breath, of the livelihood of the spirit that breathes through you. And that is what connects us with all energy. And so if you tap into that every single day, it will help you become more clear on how much food you need to eat, what kinds of foods you need to eat, what is attuned to your livelihood to help you become the most in tune being that you can be within this incarnation. And I feel that my advice for your client who, is coming from the beautiful vibrance of Thailand into now the Midwest, where it could be a little bit more heavy energy, is to really have that deep sense of reverence for yourself every single morning and every night, to give yourself the space to tap into that daily practice. It could be journaling. It could be writing. I think that it must include some form of movement, because it's getting the energy flowing, getting your spirits up. Like, then they say like, up your spirits, like, come on, like up it, it's like literally like you have to like light that fire. And that fire is what burns away all of that residue from the past day. It's what burns away any type of unneeded thoughts, any type of things that are kind of like trying to hold in and bring you into, it's like, that's not present. That's past, and it brings you into presence, right? We're not looking at what comes next. We're just being present in our breath and in our body. And when you do that every day, you will find a huge difference in the livelihood of your energy.
That's exactly what I prescribed her. 21 days at least. And she had it exactly 21 days until she was heading to Colombia, I think it was. And so I was like, perfect. You have 21 days to start anchoring in this practice. This is a morning practice to find that anchor amidst everything else that's going on outside of us. Because, we've set ourselves up certain frames that support our default. And you living in Costa Rica, I'm still refining, not sure if I want to be living in Venice Beach still for much longer.
Yeah.
And with the environment that I've set up with my partnership and the people that I hang out with in my actual close home environment is really conducive for my energetics. But I think about, a practice being like a tree in the sense where the tree can either have roots that are kind of just like surface level or the roots that go really deep. And essentially the wind is not if the wind will blow, it's when the wind will blow.
Yeah.
Does the tree get uprooted because the roots are really shallow, or does the tree stay firm and kind of, maybe sway a little bit, but is not going anywhere because the roots are super deep? In the practice, every time I do my practice in the morning, where you saw my little sacred spot, I can feel my roots going deeper. And I realize that the nutrients, the most nutrient dense soil is the deepest soil.
True.
So then the roots receive the deepest nutrients so that the tree stays healthier as well as staying firm.
Yep.
And so whether we find ourselves in a 2-hour line at TSA at the airport or we are with our family, there's the quote that says like, you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family. It's these moments of this is actually the byproduct of the richness that is cultivated on a daily basis. And I think it's something so inspiring that you haven't stopped doing yoga since that first time you went. And so just big ups to your past lover who inspired you to go and said that one thing where it was like, I'm opening a door for you that actually significantly changed the course of your life, and simultaneously, no attachment. If you don't like it, then don't worry about it. And just kind of like held it super lightly, which is the art of Tantra, which is like, to hold something, but not to grasp it and not to completely let it go. It's just like a light holding of like the invitation was open, but I have no attachment to you taking it. Here it is. And then.
Yeah. And that's kind of how it is. I feel like it was like giving you a tribal marker and saying, hey, you have the permission to mark me. It's the same concept of being able to really present someone with the option and to allow it to be their choice.
Yeah, it's really special what you have catalyzed in. I mean, if I can just imagine just what has been activated since I've known you, that's the amount of people that you're connected with and the amount of people that you've probably connected other people with these individuals, like the web of abundance that you have created for yourself. Because every time someone has an interaction that then creates some sort of level of abundance within their being, through the law of karma, it has to come back to its place of origin in which sparked it in the first place. So of course you live a very prosperous and abundant life. And that doesn't just mean financially, that means like richness of love everywhere you go, richness of the richnesses of life as you have inner engineered your external realities.
I feel that true abundance is first experienced within. And then when it is deep within, it literally exudes beyond your skin.
Has to.
And that's exactly, it has to. It's the laws of physics. And when we really tap into quantum physics, we realize that literally it's this whole awareness that no energy has ever been created or destroyed. It's all just being repurposed. And so if I'm constantly giving, then what's going to come back? Attraction.
That's very aligned with the podcast I did with Richard Rudd about prosperity. And after that podcast, like everything in my being just wanted to give everything. I was like, I'm so inspired to give everything I have. It's like just such an amazing reminder. And with that being said, of setting up our environment, to create a cohesive environment that supports our energy, I would love to hear a little bit about what you're creating in Costa Rica right now, because it sounds really magical. Yeah.
So as you mentioned, like you're kind of feeling out Venice as being like your main spot, and I had this deep dream, actually, that was the catalyst to me moving to Costa Rica. And I rarely have dreams that I remember. Most days, like I'm just exhausted by the time that I go to sleep. So like I get to sleep at like 11 o'clock, wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like I'm just going. Like I'm like I can like sleep like 5 to like 6 hours is like my sweet spot. Anything more and I'm like feeling groggy. Anything less and I'm like, So like that is my sweet spot. But long story short, I had a crazy dream on Friday the 13th of March of 2020. And I literally like this dream was like so vivid that I woke up and I was sweating fully, like in sweats. And I was like, was that real? And the dream was I had woken up in the dream, like fully in lucid state. And I heard my friend Hero, who's a great friend of mine, whose house I've actually only been over one time, but I was in his house and I was like sleeping on his couch and I woke up and he's like, Andrew, we gotta get out of here, man. We gotta go. And I'm like, Hero's like such a kind dude, super chill, like never even heard him yell in my life. He's like, we gotta go. We gotta get out of here. I'm like, Hero, like calm down. Like what's going on, man? He's like, we gotta go, bro. Like look. And he like opens the door and it was like full on like fire and brimstone, like police going by and like woo, woo, like fire outside and like just like it looked like Armageddon, like full on. And I was like, oh my goodness, like what is going on? And so I go and I open up the window, and as I'm looking out the window, it was like full on like, again, like fire and like police cars going by and ambulances and like people running around crazy. And I looked up and there was there was an airplane flying. And as I saw the airplane flying, I was like, I'm meant to leave. Like I'm meant to leave right now. And so I literally like, I remember seeing it. And then I woke up and I'm like having these deep sweats and I like wrote inside of my journal. And as I was writing inside of my journal, I felt a poem come through. And I wrote this poem, and it was during the beginning of the whole, start of COVID. And it was a very palpable dream. And I'll send you the poem because it was like, it came through and it was very clear to me that I need to leave. And the first place that I thought of was Costa Rica, because I had been coming since 2012. I absolutely love the environment. There's so much abundance. And my good friend at the time was part owner of Imaloa Institute, my good friend Nadav. And I was like Nadav has been like messaging me like, oh, we should just go and hang out at Imaloa and like just get some work done, because they wanted to do some online classes and tutorials. And I was like, this would be a perfect opportunity to like be in nature, be grounded, get some work done. And I had another friend of mine, Michaela, who had been talking about creating this recipe book. And I was like, perfect time. I can link in with both of these two friends and get some work done and be in a beautiful space while doing it. And ever since then, I have not looked back. It has been literally one of the most awesome experiences to be in communion with natural intelligence. We oftentimes forget, but we are humans. We are meant to be in communion with nature, and we are part of nature. And being in a space that is absolutely abundant in nature only brings out more creativity. It literally taps you into that space of realizing that the beauty is all around you. And when you're in that space, you create at a higher frequency. And from that, that's where the real magic happens. And so being in Costa Rica since March of 2020, I've launched my vegan protein brand, Glow Vegan, with my great friend who's the founder of Cowspiracy and What the Health. His name's Kip Anderson.
Oh, with Kip? I didn't know it was with Kip.
Yeah.
The link to Glow Vegan Protein will be in the show notes.
Definitely. And you've tried Glow Vegan, right?
Oh, we have it. Yeah, it's delicious. I love it.
Yeah, it's my heart. Like, I really, coming from a microbiology background, I was like, I had so many of my friends ask me like, what do you eat? What do you put inside of your body? Like, how do you do fingertip handstands and like all this kind of stuff? Like you're like on like rocket fuel. And I'm like, yeah, because like I eat like really fresh nutrients. Like that's what it's all about, like the highest density nutrients possible. Spirulina, chlorella, all these things. And I had just gone to the Expo West conference, which is like a superfood conference. Like David Avocado Wolf is there and like all these really genius people. And I met this dude named Dr. Jeff Palmer, and he was there talking about this really incredible plant called lentine. And lentine grows on the surface of water. It's similar to an algae, but it's not an algae per se. It's actually a duckweed. And inside of the root system, which is like, it's like a small little thing that just has 2 little leaves that pops out and it just absorbs the sun. And then from that absorption of the sun, it actually transmits all this energy and draws from the water and creates B12. So it has naturally occurring B12, which is what most plant-based people and also most people actually lack in their diets. And so B12 is a huge vitamin that actually helps in the mitochondria being able to absorb energy, and it helps to facilitate digestion even more, so that you can assimilate this energy into actually being able to produce more energy in what you do. So long story short, I was like, this is genius. Like, we're going to talk to this guy. We're going to make a protein. Called up my buddy Kip. I was like, Kip, like, do you want to like create a project with me? Like, I think like this will be really big. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, like all my friends are always asking me about protein. I'm vegan. You're vegan. Like, we should create a plant-based protein. And he's like, dude, I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about calling it glow vegan. And I'm like, brilliant. Let's do it. Call up my friend who owns Trilogy Sanctuary. Have you ever been to Trilogy Sanctuary in San Diego?
Is it? No.
It's got a yoga studio on the rooftop and a beautiful restaurant.
Yes. I went with you.
Yeah?
Yeah, for Travel Markets. We did a gig when you were doing a class.
We did. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, the connections, they continue. Sometimes I'm like, I do so much that I forget even like all the different events. Yeah. So many different events that led us to right here. But long story short, with Joe from Trilogy Sanctuary, with Kip from the wonderful Glow Vegan was born. And so essentially that has been my way to actually get people to try a plant-based diet through having all the nutrient density that they need for the livelihood of their day. And this all basically stemmed from, being in Costa Rica, as having this deep sense of being in communion with the earth, that I was like, how can I create something that is actually going to be more sustainable? So Glow Vegan, the actual main ingredient, lentine, is all water farmed. So there's no actual fertilizer that goes in the ground. There's no runoff that goes into the ocean. There's a lot of the other proteins that are made from pea protein and all this kind of stuff, like they actually have to put fertilizer in these things. Soy is one of the worst things for the earth, because they're literally cutting down forests to plant soy farms. And most of that soy actually gets fed to livestock. Yeah. And it's like, I just had to like move away from this. I'm an Aquarius. I'm a water bearer. So I was like, how can we actually create something with water? We can grow lentine in the water and 98% of the water gets recycled. So it's like, we're not only helping the planet, but we're also helping to fuel people with fresh energy so that they can feel their best. It's got incredible omega-3 profile. It's got all of the trace minerals that you need. It's got iron, which is oftentimes lacked in the vegan diet. And it's got more nutrient density than chlorella, than spirulina, than moringa, and than kale. So it's basically like the best thing that you can eat. So yeah, I created that. I also have been creating a beautiful, I'm calling it an Ascension Center with Singularity University, which is one of the most high-tech gathering spaces in the world. They have these really wonderful ways to bring CEOs and really incredible innovators into a space where they can actually create new systems and formulas to solve the world's biggest problems. And so I'm partnering with them to create a wellness space that also incorporates a hotel so that people can come and have the opportunity to stay in Costa Rica and to be fully immersed in that natural creativity, while at the same time working for, Google, or working for, SpaceX, or whoever the company is, and then also have yoga, meditation, hyperbaric chambers, sound deprivation, hot and cold tanks. So all of this wellness to keep them in that sense of flow so that they can operate at their highest efficiency.
Wow! It's so amazing to witness what you have been up to since like we last like really fully be able to drop in. Of course, I've been seeing the renders of what you're creating out in Costa Rica with this Ascension Center, and then also I've been drinking Glow protein. Andre's been into our morning shake, and it feels really good not only to be supporting you and everything that you're creating, while simultaneously also supporting myself in return. And ultimately, what you're doing is you're creating things, whether it's products or an actual physical center, where it's just bounded off win for everybody involved, which is the highest octave of any sort of business or any creation that we can ever birth into the world. And this is all born from a very packed, deep sense of inner riches of devotion to your higher self in all times. And so just acknowledging you for everything that you're doing and everything that you're creating, and all of everything that you just shared will be in the show notes. So if anybody feels super drawn towards connecting in with this Ascension Center in Costa Rica and learning a little bit more about that, or also the Glow protein and being able to get your own so that you know that what you're putting in, specifically in the morning, if you're creating a morning shake or anything like that, making sure that it's at the highest octave of ingredients that can really support the optimization of your mind, body, and spirit. We are closing out now as we come into the end of the podcast. However, I always like to ask my guests this question, which at the moment it feels like I'm putting them on the spot, but it's also, which is, if this microphone was wired into, that one right there, if it was wired into a network that essentially broadcasts a message all across the world, across all radio stations, across all TV sets, and you had 30 seconds to deliver a message to humanity, what would your message be?
My message would be that you are exactly where you need to be. And right now is the prime time to allow your heart to fully shine into that which is divine, your path, your purpose, your presence. And truly take this moment as an opportunity to be fully in love with yourself. And from that, all else will grow with love and harmony. Blessings. You are loved.
So it is. Oh, Andrew Seeley, you're such a gift. So grateful for you to be here. If people are tuning into this and they're like, wow, I really want to continue to follow this majestic human through his journey in his life and what he's activating, how can people find you?
I would say the best way to find me is at andrew7seeley.com. I'm also on andrew7seeley.instagram. So you can find me there as well. And I would say the project that I'm most excited for you to find me at is a 24-day vegan challenge. That's my up and coming baby that's going to be out sooner than later. So I'm excited to birth that into the world. If you want to take a journey into yoga, mindfulness, and also 50 recipes to guide you through 24 days of literally living your best self, come on a journey with me, 24dayveganchallenge.com. And I'd say those are the best ways to find me.
Amazing. Thank you for having so many ways to reach you, and also for having so many different pieces that are impacting the planet in a really positive way. It's not easy to create really sustainably sourced and high integrity ingredients. It takes a lot of research, a lot of time, a lot of resources, and yet simultaneously, it's so much easier to create products that are not really ticking all of those boxes, and it's much cheaper and all of the things, and simultaneously your heart and your integrity to the earth is so deeply felt. So on behalf of all of those that will be sipping on their Glow protein shake and really glowing from the inside out, thank you. So grateful for you.
Thank you. I truly appreciate you having the time to just sit and speak with me, and to really ask these beautiful questions that have drawn out this incredible podcast. And I really am appreciative for the beautiful community that you fostered. And to see you to continue to grow is an absolute beauty. And I am so grateful for you. So grateful for you, Blue.
I love you.
Love you too.
Yeah.
Many more epic times.
Definitely. Oh,
Maybe
yeah. We
shine.
did get you shine. Yeah.
Blessings.
Alrighty. To you, all of you beautiful humans out there that are watching or listening to this podcast. If you feel the resonance with this podcast and you feel like there's some nuggets of wisdom that you would like to share, we can only reach so many people through our social platforms, but you can spread the message in many more directions in which we may never reach. So if you feel called to share this on your Instagram stories or any of your social media platforms, please do tag myself and Andrew, and we can get the message of yoga out into the world and all of the many other different nuggets of wisdom that were shared on today's podcast. So in this moment, may you feel expansion, may you feel lightness, may you feel seen, loved, and supported, because you are the truth of the divinity of who you are and who you will always be. Until next week, sending you so much love and blessings.
Blessings.